All right, we're going to go ahead and start. I want to welcome everyone to our virtual edition of LoboBITES. We're so glad that you came today, and we are looking forward to this hour of information about the great work our graduate students are doing. Before we get started, and as a few people may be arriving a little late, and I think it benefits everybody to hear this, I'm going to take a few minutes to provide instructions to our judges. So many thanks to you judges for being here today. You should have received your score sheet by email, so I think you would have told me if you hadn't. That score sheet allows you to give up to 5 points, with 5 points being the highest score for the 4 different categories of significance, clarity, delivery, and engagement. Please record your score after each student contestant. Then after all 7 contestants have been scored, your total scores are going to be tallied. During that tallying, there will be an opportunity for a few of you to ask the students questions if you like. So when we get to that point, if you all have some questions you'd like to ask the students, we would love to have that. So please keep that in mind. After a few questions from the judging panel, we will then announce the winners. And if for some reason there are technical difficulties in viewing the videos, you have a link to each video on your score sheet. So I really want to thank the judges for being patient with all of the instructions we've provided, the multiple emails. Typically, when we meet in person, the most complicated instruction is for parking. So you were spared that one. All right, so with that, some of you may ask, why are we showing videos during this live event? LoboBITES generally follows the rules of the trademarked 3MT or 3-minute thesis competition. This year, most graduate schools are taking video submissions to minimize the possibility of internet disruption for the delivery, wanting to keep it fair for everyone in case their video would go out. If we were meeting in person, the students would have a single static slide behind them, along with a slightly obnoxious clock that counts down from 3 minutes. So that clock makes everyone nervous, including everybody that's watching the students. So we're spared the clock because they did this on a video. In between each video, there will be just a couple of minutes where I will ask the students what I tend to call coffee questions, something where I just want to get to know them a bit in the live environment. And that will give the judges just a little bit of time to do their scoring between each video. So before we have an official welcome, do the judges have any questions, or are all you good? Great, great. Thank you so much. So we have an official welcome from President Garnet Stokes.
Good afternoon, Lobos. This is President Stokes, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the annual UNM Shared Knowledge Conference, LoboBITES competition. Last year marked a significant milestone for the university as we celebrated a century of graduate studies at the University of New Mexico. Over that 100 years, we've grown into 120 graduate and professional programs with over 6,000 graduate and professional students and confirmation of over 1,700 graduate and professional degrees annually. This year, well, I don't think any of us are going to forget 2020. But I'm so pleased we're able to have this competition virtually, in spite of not being able to come together in person. I want to thank all of our graduate students for telling us about their important work. I wish you all incredible success, not only today, but in all of your future endeavors. Also, many thanks to the UNM staff that judged the preliminary rounds, making the decision by our community judges even more difficult. And as always, thank you to Julie Coonrod, Dean of Graduate Studies. I so appreciate you and your department helping to maintain some semblance of normalcy in these rather tumultuous times by bringing us all together for this event. I'm so grateful for your vision and leadership. At the University of New Mexico, where each of us defines all of us, LoboBITES displays the breadth and academic distinction of our graduate students. And I cannot wait to see what you do next. Now, Lobos, let the competition begin.
Thank you to President Stokes for that welcome and your support of this event. We're fortunate to have a superstar panel of judges. And in order for our judges to be highlighted in our virtual environment, I'm asking each judge to introduce themselves as I call on you. So please remember to click the unmute button before you speak. So we'd like to welcome Congresswoman Holland.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I am a proud alumni of UNM and UNM School of Law. I graduated from UNM in 1994 with my English degree in UNM School of Law in 2006. I also have a daughter who's a Lobo. I am very honored to serve the 1st District of New Mexico as a U.S. representative and a very, very proud 35th generation New Mexican. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Mr. Armijo.
Thank you, Julie. Alan Armijo, Director of Public Affairs in Mayor Tim Keller's office. I have both my undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of New Mexico. I have a senior student at UNM who's going to graduate in December, and a sophomore daughter that's like Lobo as well. So, and my wife is also a graduate of the University of New Mexico. My friends or people I tell, I've had Lobo basketball season tickets for, I've quit counting, over 40 years, maybe 45 years. So I miss the sports and everything that we do, but great opportunity. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for being with us. Mr. Lujan.
Good afternoon from sunny Henderson, Nevada. My name is Chris Lujan. I'm a 2005 graduate of the UNM School of Architecture, and I'm a practicing architect in the Las Vegas area and also serve as the alumni chapter leader for Southern Nevada. Pleasure to join you guys and really looking forward to this. Thank you for everything you got.
Great. We appreciate that the virtual environment allowed people to join from out of town. Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Julie. I'm Representative Joy Garrett. I represent the west side of Albuquerque. If you see the 5 volcanoes where the origin story of many of our tribes is based, that's the heart of my area. I too am a UNM graduate. I got my teaching degree and my educational leadership degree. And my husband did his PhD there. So I'm a proud Lobo, and I'm just excited by the diversity of your presentations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Representative Garrett. Mr. Valenzuela.
Hi, thank you, Julie. My name is Mark Valenzuela. I am a graduate of the UNM Anderson Graduate School of Management. I have my MBA at a UNM, undergrad from New Mexico Tech. I am the principal analyst with oversight of all of higher ed in New Mexico, so all 24 public colleges and universities. For the Legislative Finance Committee, I support Representative Garrett and the other 111 legislators that are her colleagues. So I'm happy to participate. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Valenzuela. And Judge Henderson.
Good evening, everyone. So excited to be here with all of you. Born and raised New Mexican in Albuquerque, so being a Lobo is kind of tradition from childhood. I am a proud graduate of the law school, 2007. I sit on the alumni board for main campus and the law school, and I am happy to be a judge on the New Mexico Court of Appeals, and I look forward to seeing everyone's presentations this evening.
Great. Thank you, Judge Henderson. There is some great Lobo spirit in the house, so really appreciate that. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate your time today. Let me tell you what a LoboBite is. A LoboBite is a sound bite of a student's work. It is our version of a 3-minute thesis, giving the students the opportunity and perhaps the challenge to distill their complicated work to a broader audience in 3 minutes. These 7 finalists were chosen from a much larger group that submitted videos and were judged by a group of UNM staff that are not working directly with students on their academics. We thank all the students and judges that have participated. I will introduce the contestant and the name of their talk while the video is coming up. We ask all panelists to keep their microphone muted, and then participants may see the gallery of students and judges while the video is playing, depending on your setup, or you might just see the video. After each video, I'll ask the student a few questions so we get to know them a bit better while the judges complete their scores. So our first speaker is Mario Delangell, who is from Spanish, and his title is Spanish in New Mexico, a study of Nuevo Mexicano words.
Hello everyone, do you know that New Mexico is a Hispanic melting pot? There are at least 5 different ways to say turkey in New Mexico. Pavo, guajolote, torque, gallina de la tierra, gallina de la sierra, and huijalo. There are so many different ways people speak Spanish in New Mexico, and mainly because there are 2 major Spanish dialects spoken by 2 different populations that coexist and live together. These are the descendants of the earlier Hispanic settlers that came to New Mexico in the 1500s and immigrants from Mexico that have been coming to New Mexico during the whole 19th century and 20th century and beginning of the 21st century, mainly from the states of Chihuahua and Durango, who bring their own Spanish dialect from northern Mexico. These 2 dialects merge together and influence one another, mainly because these 2 populations influence one another. They go to school together, they become friends, they have kids, they get married, and that's what the reason why the Spanish language in New Mexico has been changing so much in the last century and evolving to a different place. Other scholars have studied Spanish before, but why is it important and significant to keep studying it? So we can compare and we can update our books, our dictionaries, our Spanish language classes, our translation, and our teaching. In my research, I am showing people from Las Vegas, Santa Fe, Española, Peñasco, Taos, and Albuquerque different pictures of different concepts, objects, ideas that they come across in their daily lives. I'm showing them a picture and asking them, how do you call this in Spanish? So I can document the ways Spanish has changed or has maintained, if that's the case, throughout the years. How is it different? How is my dissertation project different from previous studies on the Spanish words of New Mexico? Well, I'm incorporating 3 main differences in my study. The number 1 is the separation of Hispanic groups. In previous studies, researchers have grouped together all Hispanics born in New Mexico as if they had the same background and the same linguistic provenance, but they do not. Do they come from a Mexican Spanish-speaking family or a New Mexican Spanish-speaking family? And that's one of the main differences. I'm adding that as a variable. Another variable is that I'm allowing people to tell me more than one word. As we know, we can have multiple words for the same concept, so I'm letting people speak and say all the words they know, and finally I'm letting them rate each word they use in a level of familiarity, so I can come with mean scores that I can use in order to know whether Mexicans are influencing New Mexicans or New Mexicans are influencing Mexicans in the way they speak their Spanish, how much and to what extent. Conclusions will be soon available right after I conclude visiting all these communities in northern New Mexico. Thank you very much for watching my presentation.
I meant to unmute before I clapped for you, Mario. Mario, would you please go ahead and unmute? I'd like to ask you a few questions and get to know you a bit better. Why don't you tell us where you're from?
Hi, nice to meet you, everyone. Well, I'm originally from the city of Monterrey in Mexico, northern Mexico.
And what made you come to the University of New Mexico?
Well, I came here by first time 7 years ago in 2013 as an exchange student. And then I just fell in love with the place. I learned so much about New Mexico. Before I came here, I didn't really know that the Hispanic culture not only is important today, but has been for hundreds of years. I was completely unaware of this. And as I took classes at UNM, I realized of how diverse this country is and New Mexico is. So I kept coming back for my master's. Now I'm doing my PhD and I almost feel like a New Mexican now.
well, we'll make you an honorary New Mexican. Can you tell us one of the things that made you fall in love with this place?
You know, I'd say everything, the food, the music, but mostly the people. People are so welcoming, so warm. So there's not only people from New Mexico that have shown me what New Mexico is and what it means to them, but I have also a lot of people from Mexico, from my own country, that have been here for decades, and their kids and their grandkids who were born in this country, and I can relate to them and I can get to know them. And I actually came to the United States to meet a new kind of Mexican person, that is Mexican American people I had never had contact with, and I'm really happy I came here to learn this much.
Great. Thank you so much, Mario.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amelia Bearley from Public Policy. The title of her presentation is Vaccine Delivery to Remote Regions of the World Using a Novel Delivery Platform.
What if I told you getting vaccinated was as easy as putting on a Band-Aid? My name is Amelia Bierle. I'm working in the laboratory of Pavan Mutil to develop a vaccine platform that is cheaper and more practical than vaccines that require a perfect cold chain and trained healthcare workers. Vaccines on our platform can be deployed anywhere in the world by people with minimal training. The COVID-19 pandemic has infected tens of millions around the world and killed over 1 million people so far. It's just getting started. And it won't be over until we have stopped it with a vaccine. The Moderato Vaccine, one of the first COVID vaccine candidates, requires cold chain at liquid nitrogen temperatures. It is not practical in rural towns in the US, let alone remote regions of the world. Other vaccines require a perfect cold chain at freezer temperatures. All of the current vaccines must be administered by trained health professionals, as well as requiring a perfect cold chain. Our solution is a dissolvable microneedle vaccine platform that could be built onto a Band-Aid. For people in remote parts of the world with poor access to healthcare, our microneedle platform is a vaccination system that delivers a thermostable vaccine without requiring trained personnel, sharps disposal, or cold chain. The costs are reduced. There is no risk of needle sticks, and hundreds of thousands of people without a vaccine now have access. Our team has what it takes to commercialize this technology. We have a patented method to produce a thermostable vaccine that don't require cold chain. We are currently working on 3 grants, an STTR and 2 SBIRs, in partnership with companies to commercialize innovations in pharmacology. We have the solution the world needs. The COVID-19 pandemic won't end until people in remote villages in the developing world are vaccinated. The COVID-19 pandemic will not be the last pandemic that we face either. If we are to end the COVID-19 pandemic and stop other emerging diseases before they become pandemics, we need a vaccine delivery platform that is cheap and practical. Our microneedle vaccine platform is the solution, because no one is safe until everyone is safe. Thank you.
Great job, Amelia. So Amelia, if you would unmute, I'd like to ask you a few questions, similarly to as we did with Mario. So tell us where you're from.
I'm from Carlsbad, New Mexico.
And what brought you to the University of New Mexico?
I came to play soccer here at UNM, and really the deciding factor was the girls on the team. They made me feel like family, and so as soon as I met them, I knew I wanted to come here. And since I've fallen in love with everything Albuquerque has to offer, and that's why I'm going to grad school here now. So I love Albuquerque.
And did your research on vaccinations start prior to COVID or after COVID started?
So I started this research last year, right after my undergraduate. And so pretty timely, but is actually really interesting because when my mentor told me about the research, I right away was hooked and fascinated. He comes from a middle income country. And so the story that he told me about it, I was sold right away about the importance of the research. And now that's obviously been blown up to a grand scale.
Great. Thank you so much, Amelia. Our next presenter is Tia Donaldson from psychology. The title of her presentation is A New Look into an Old Problem, Implications of the Locus Coeruleus in Alzheimer's Disease.
Alzheimer's disease affects approximately 5 million people within the United States. This number is projected to almost triple within the next 30 years. As prevalence continues to rise, it is important to understand how Alzheimer's disease affects the brain. Alzheimer's disease is characterized by pathology known as plaques and tangles. The formation of this pathology has been associated with cognitive symptoms such as memory decline. Most research on Alzheimer's disease focuses on the mid to late stages of the disease when pathology and cognitive symptoms have already reached their peak. However, there is research to suggest that the locus coeruleus is one of the first brain areas to deteriorate in early Alzheimer's disease. The locus coeruleus is a small cluster of neurons located within the brainstem, shown here in purple. The locus coeruleus sends strong projections to the hippocampus, which is the brain's main learning and memory center, shown here in blue. These projections are rich in a chemical known as norepinephrine. Norepinephrine has been implicated in several cognitive processes, including learning and memory. In our lab, we use a rat model of Alzheimer's disease to explore the progression of pathology within the brain. We predict that pathology within the locus coeruleus will lead to a deterioration of the norepinephrine-rich projections to the hippocampus and thus create learning and memory deficits. Using fluorescent staining, we are able to quantify the plaque and tangle formation at various ages within the rat brain and measure the progression of the disease. By understanding the relationship between the locus coeruleus and Alzheimer's disease pathology, we are able to better understand Alzheimer's disease, and we may be able to develop more effective treatments to slow or stop the spread of pathology and also cognitive symptoms. The locus coeruleus may be the key to finding a cure to Alzheimer's disease. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Tia. Tia, would you please go ahead and unmute? And we'd like to know where you're from.
Hi, I'm from Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
Really far away from the University of New Mexico. So what made you decide to pursue a graduate degree here at UNM?
Well, I always took field trips as a kid at UNM, and I just love the campus. I did my undergrad here, and then I went away for a little bit, got my master's at Northern Illinois University, but I just really love New Mexico, so I decided to come back and get my PhD here.
Well, good. We're glad you're back. What did anything in particular make you decide to pursue Alzheimer's research?
I've always been interested in the brain and how it works, and Alzheimer's disease, the brain doesn't work as well. And so, yeah, I just wanted to answer that question, find more about it.
Great. Thank you so much, Tia.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Carlos Enrique Ibaba from Spanish and Portuguese. The title of his presentation is The Sociolinguistics of the Mixtecos in Rural Northwestern Oregon.
Have you ever wondered if everyone who was born and raised in Mexico is a native speaker of Spanish? Are there Mexicans who learned Spanish in the US after immigrating as adults? How would you feel if a racial, linguistic, or ethnic identity label were imposed on you? Millions born and raised in Mexico do not have Spanish as their first language. Vast pockets of the country are populated by speakers of an indigenous language for whom Spanish is as foreign as English. One of the states with the highest number of indigenous peoples and languages is Oaxaca in southwestern Mexico, where the Mixteco peoples constitute one of the largest groups who have kept their own languages over Spanish for more than 5 centuries. For the last 100 years, Mixtecos have traveled along the west coasts of Mexico and the US following seasonal agricultural jobs. In a town called Woodburn, in northwestern rural Oregon, Mixteco families have coexisted for about 80 years with Mexicans who speak other Mexican indigenous languages, Mexicans who speak Spanish and English or only Spanish, and with white Moluccan Russians and Anglos. My dissertation explores linguistic and cultural identity, attitudes, context of language use, and language maintenance across generations for speakers of Mixteco, Spanish, and English in Woodburn. Data show that indigenous Mexicans do not identify with the terms Hispanic or Latino. It also reveals that more than 15 Mexican indigenous languages are spoken across generations in the agricultural fields of rural Oregon, making multilingualism the rule rather than the exception there. However, I found that for parents and grandparents, passing on their Mixteco language to the younger generations is a significant challenge. My dissertation also explores the role that the lack of mutual comprehensibility of all the diverse Mixteco dialects has on the cultural and social lives of their speakers, and it documents experiences of illiterate Mexican adult immigrants who have learned Spanish in Oregon without ever having set foot in a classroom or received any sort of formal education. My dissertation also discusses the challenges that an outside researcher like me has to face in connecting with these highly marginalized populations.
Thank you, Carlos. So Carlos, if you would go ahead and unmute, please tell us where you're from.
I am from a town that's called Tehuacan in the state of Puebla in south central Mexico.
And what made you come to the University of New Mexico?
Well, I have been in the States for about 25 years now, and I got my master's from another university, and I have been exposed to different theoretical approaches in linguistics at all those other universities and in my years in the field of linguistics. And I was very attracted to the to UNM because of the theoretical leanings of its linguistics faculty.
And did anything in particular surprise you about the program at UNM?
Yes, it really allows students to explore their intellectual interests without having to adjust too much to anything that may not really be in the what interests you. So I have been able to really focus on what I really want to do.
Great, thank you so much, Carlos. Our next speaker is Blace Mariner, who is in biomedical engineering, and the title of his presentation is Who Wants to Live Forever?
Aging increases the likelihood of the onset of age-related diseases such as Alzheimer's, heart disease, and cancer. Aging is not commonly seen as a disease, but as an inoperable, natural process. However, aging has recognizable causes on the molecular level, and many actually argue for its classification as a disease. In my lab with Dr. McCormick and others at the University of New Mexico, we study a protein whose human name is ATF4. ATF4 expression leads to lifespan extension in many of our model organisms. We think that ATF4 induces a process called autophagy. Autophagy is a process the cell undergoes to renew itself by recycling its old components into newer, better functioning components. In many cases, lifespan extension models have been shown to be dependent on autophagy. From what we have found in our model organisms, we think that ATF4 and its link to autophagy may hold the key to understanding aging in lifespan extending models. Let me tell you why. Cells are constantly building proteins. It's similar to baking bread from a set of ingredients. Flour, eggs, yeast, water are all put together and baked in just the right way to result in a loaf of bread. In a cell, the right combination of amino acids, followed by the right amount of processing, results in a functional protein. Let's imagine we were to take away an ingredient and try to bake bread. It's unlikely that I would be able to make an edible loaf. And you may think that it's the same in cells. That is, if we take away protein ingredients, we wouldn't be able to make protein. And for the most part, this is true. However, that's not always the case, and the ATF4 protein paradoxically increases its expression when we take away protein ingredients. Furthermore, laboratory organisms tend to live longer. So this has been a lot of information thus far. Let's bring it all together. We are able to use drugs on our lab organisms to restrict their access to protein ingredients, paradoxically increasing ATF4 protein levels, increasing autophagy, and resulting in an increased lifespan. What organisms have we used to show that this is true? Well, with single-cell yeast at the top right of your screen, tiny roundworms in the middle, and I am currently working with mouse cells. Uncovering this novel link between the ATF4 protein and autophagy will give us a new biochemical perspective and put us one step closer to extending lifespan and delaying age-related diseases in humans. I'm excited to be continuing this research here at UNM. Thank you.
Thank you, Blaze. Good job. You know the drill by now, so please tell us where you're from, Blaze.
Yeah, I'm a proud Albuquerque, New Mexican.
Very good. And what made you stay at UNM for graduate school?
Well, I left the state for my undergrad, and then I came back because I was I didn't really know what to do with myself, but I had kind of a STEM background, and I got really interested in the biomedical research side of things due to diseases that pop up in family and friends. And so I wanted to dedicate my life to something like that.
And do you really want to live forever?
I don't know. Do you?
I don't. But it changes as you get older. Thank you very much, Blaze.
Yeah.
Our next speaker is Isabelle Missa, who is from Civil Construction and Environmental Engineering. Her talk is entitled, "How do you know if uranium and arsenic are in your glass of water?"
What would you do if I tell you that this water might have uranium and arsenic in solution and you might not be able to see it? Would you be worried about it? I guess the answer is yes. Me too. Good morning, everyone. My name is Isabelle Missa, and I will present you how we can know if uranium and arsenic are in water using solubility and thermodynamic measurements. But first of all, a little bit of background. There are over than 500 abandoned uranium mine sites in southwestern United States. And it has been found that several have water illegal sources throughout the whole Navajo Nation. Specifically, thinking about our research group with Dr. Jose Serrato, we have found high concentrations of uranium and arsenic that are above the maximum contaminant levels allowed by the Environmental Protection Agency. So, considering these high concentrations that we have found in the Jackpile mine that is 30 minutes away from Albuquerque, we think that we might form uranyl arsenates. And then is where my research started. I began to look for deeper information, to measurements that let me know how soluble or insoluble uranyl arsenates are in water, and I couldn't find much. So I did my homework and I found out a way to get these measurements. The first step is to get a pure uranyl arsenate, and I did that 1 year ago with collaboration of the University of Notre Dame in Indiana. The second step is to do solubility experiments. That is basically to get this pure uranyl arsenate, put it in water, and let it dissolve in time. For my experiment, it took 31 days in order to get to equilibrium. With this information, we can do some geochemistry equations and get to our third step, which is to get the solubility and thermodynamic measurements. And that's it, just like that, just like magic, because research is about magic, right? We can get solubility and thermodynamic measurements, which can finally let us predict how uranium and arsenic can mobilize in water, and as an ultimate goal, to have safe drinking water for you and for me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Isabelle.
My pleasure.
So where are you from, Isabelle?
So I am from Quito, Ecuador, South America.
And what made you come to the University of New Mexico?
So my best friend, Carmen, she started studying her PhD here 2 years ago, and she fell in love with New Mexico and with our great advisor, with Jose. He is the best. So I couldn't resist, and I just came, and I wanted to make sure if uranium and arsenic are in water.
So what about New Mexico made you fall in love with it?
One of the things is the sky. I think Albuquerque has such a beautiful sky, and I love the hot air balloons, so colorful. And yeah, I think that's one of the best things. And the food too. I love New Mexican food.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Isabelle. We have one last speaker. So our final speaker today is Spencer Staley from Earth and Planetary Sciences. The title of his presentation is The Climatology of Windblown Dust Over the Millennia in the American Southwest.
Windblown or aeolian dust is ubiquitous in dry regions like the Southwest, but it is more than just a nuisance requiring the wipe of a wet rag across a windowsill. Where dust originates, gusty winds degrade ecosystems by removing nutrients and reducing the water holding capacity of topsoil. Once in the air, dust can be hazardous to both air quality and visibility. Tiny dust particles can even alter the properties of clouds and affect Earth's energy budget. When deposited, dust can act as fertilizer, but on snow, however, it can accelerate spring melt, affecting our water resources. And you might be surprised that wind isn't the only factor that connects aeolian dust behavior and climate. Rainfall and temperature are climatologic variables that, among other things, influence the amount and type of vegetation, which variably stabilize soils and baffle winds. Rainfall patterns also affect erosion and the exposure of fresh sediment to the wind. We predict that aeolian dust will become an ever bigger part of our lives as our regions becomes warmer, drier, and more developed. But direct observations date back only a few decades, truly only a snapshot in geologic time. Are we missing some sort of long-term trend? Is a critical threshold fast approaching? Paleoclimatologists like myself like to say that the past is the key to the present. Here in the Southwest, over a dozen glacial interglacial cycles, oscillations between cool and wet and warm and dry conditions have occurred over the past million years. Archives of this change, like layers of lake sediment, essentially contain results of a natural set of climatologic experiments. The paleoclimatic record I study is a sediment core from Stoneman Lake in central Arizona. It spans the last 1.2 million years, and unlike most other climate records from the Southwest, it came from a lake that hasn't dried out during past interglacial periods, making it one of the longest and most continuous views of Southwestern climate. Among other climatologic aspects this core can address, Stoneman Lake's geology makes this record ideal for Aeolian study. Auspiciously, the entire drainage that feeds into the lake is a single bedrock, basalt. Importantly, the mineral quartz is not found in basalt, but quartz is a major component of Aeolian sediments. Quartz is indeed abundant in core sediments, as I have found, suggesting that Aeolian dust has deposited in significant amounts throughout the lake's history. With this knowledge, we can measure the quartz abundance in sediment layers to track the accumulation of windblown dust through time. Additional elemental and grain size analyses can track changes in the input of locally eroded versus Aeolian material. Furthermore, we can probe the atomic structure of clay minerals with X-rays to interpret chemical weathering intensity and soil characteristics. Taken together, these data will address interrelationships among regional climate, weathering, erosion, and dust activity over at least the last 1 million years, an extensive and as of yet unresolved period in the Southwest geologic history.
Thank you, Spencer.
You're welcome.
So tell us where you're from, Spencer.
I grew up in central New York, and what brought me to UNM, well, I went on a cross-country road trip to prospective graduate schools in 2016 in the dead of winter, and I found that it was not the dead of winter in Albuquerque. And that's kind of what drew me to it. Also, you know, the food and really, as a geologist, the landscapes are just absolutely spectacular.
Fantastic. We love to hear all of that. We heard the Lobo spirit at the beginning, so that just goes right with it. Anything particular surprised you when you started the graduate program here?
What surprised me? Well, the interdisciplinary aspects of the geology or Earth and Planetary Science department. But even then, the connections between biology and chemistry and engineering were really amazing, and I think speaks to how powerful and great our graduate programs are.
Great, thank you. We will take that shout out, and I would love to give a huge round of applause to all the participants. You guys just did fantastic. So a quick observation in our new virtual format. I have the pleasure of getting to see the students watch these videos. So I'm actually seeing their little tiles watch the videos, which I know the participants aren't, but it's something that we miss from being in person. So you all didn't get to see the other students that competed with you in your preliminary heats. And I realize how unfortunate that is, because it was really nice to get to see the students' responses to the other students speaking. So I'm sorry that you didn't get that in the preliminary rounds, and I hope that you enjoyed a taste of that. So while our scores are being tallied, so the judges have presumably finished putting in their scores and they're now being tallied, we want to take a moment to hear from our provost. Provost James Holloway.
James Holloway, Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs. Hi, I'm James Holloway, Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs here at the University of New Mexico. I'd like to thank all of the graduate students who've chosen to participate in LoboBITES this year to share your research work with a broader audience. I'd also like to congratulate the finalists who presented today, sharing with us topics that range from linguistics to aging to the importance of water resources and water resource safety. Truly, your work is central to the mission of the University of New Mexico and the creation of new knowledge. I'd also like to thank the community judges who have given of their time today to view the presentations, share their thoughts, and also recognize the importance of this kind of research at the university. To all of you, thank you, congratulations, and have a great day.
Thank you to Provost Holloway for support of graduate education. Real quick to the judges, it looks like Christine might be missing one score. If you see in the chat, you might see if she got your score. So while those are continuing to be tallied, I would like to thank all the people that really help with everything. So there are a lot of people that are here to serve our graduate students and help them be successful. In particular, the graduate studies staff that work for me and work with me, I am particularly grateful. They make graduate studies run and do what it is able to do for our graduate students. Christine Schell is one of our PhD students who maintains our website, and she did a great job in organizing the details of this event. Stephanie Sanchez is here to help serve as a tiebreaker if we need it. And while the scores continue to be tallied, I'd like to give our judges a chance to ask the students some questions. And if you want to ask a particular student a question, please call them out by name. Now, this is something that we don't typically do when we're live. And so it may be something that we start. So we would love to be able to hear from the judges if they have a question. So I'm just going to ask that maybe you, okay, perfect. So Alan Armijo has a question.
This one is from Mario. Mario, did you use Ruben Cobos' A Dictionary of New Mexico and Southern Colorado Spanish for your research?
I totally did. That's one of the most important pieces of literature that's been written, together with Dr. Aurelio Espinosa's, huge encyclopedia of New Mexican Spanish and Southern Colorado Spanish. That's a big piece of what I'm doing, and hopefully, if I'm blessed enough to have the opportunity once this COVID has passed, and I can go back to the communities and talk to the norteños up there, and I can gather my own information to hopefully create my own dictionary in a few years.
Great, I'd love to. I keep Ruben's Professor Cobos' dictionary here because I'm always teaching people in the office about the difference between Mexican and New Mexican Spanish. And I actually, as an undergraduate, helped him put this together. So, or many of us did in his class. So great, I'm glad to see. I look forward to your dictionary as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the judges? Representative Garrett.
Well, first, I just want to thank you all, because what really stunned me in a good way was the practicality of application of your research. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, oh yeah, we got to do this, we got to do that. But I have a special question for Carlos. Carlos, as a longtime educator, and as we do the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit here in New Mexico, how do we take that kind of research and deal with our students and families in schools when often we're not dealing with just Spanish? We are dealing with these multiple dialects where it's hard to really communicate. Do you have any insights based on your research from that?
Yeah, well, I work for the program of Spanish as Heritage Language at UNM also, and that program is the second oldest, the second longest running program in the country and in the world for Spanish as Heritage Language. Spanish as Heritage Language started being taught at NMSU about a decade before it started being taught here. So in our experience, we're still, this what you just mentioned is at the forefront, is kind of cutting edge research in terms of heritage speakers and dialectology, because it has not been researched before. And like Mario said very well, in the past, people who do research in Spanish, they assume that everyone speaks the same and there's no subtleties or no differences. And there are at many levels, not only in terms of meaning, but also in terms of pronunciation, the use of what's called archaic terms, very old terms, and many other things, also influences of indigenous languages into the dialects that people speak when they come together in a state like New Mexico, where so many different dialects are spoken in the immigrant communities and in the United States at large. So to give you a short answer, we're still conducting research on that, but UNM is at the forefront of that type of research. I'm very proud to say that, because not other universities don't have the diversity of dialects that we have here in this state. And hopefully in a few years, more programs of Spanish as heritage language focusing on specific dialects are going to start to be created. So we uplift those home varieties instead of trying to standardize everything, killing, getting rid of cultural insights, that the cultural insights that languages give us, all the different dialects and the richness of the varieties.
Thank you.
So we have our finalists, but if there's one more judge that wants to ask a question, I'm happy to entertain one more. Okay, Representative Holland and then Judge Henderson.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you all so much for your inspiring presentations. I have so much faith in UNM and UNM Graduate School giving you all the opportunities to follow your passions, and just know that I stand in support of every single thing that all of you are doing. So thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Great, thank you for that. And Judge Henderson.
Just quickly, I mean, wow, everybody's presentations were so amazing, and so many different aspects into things that are so important to all of us. And it was just really impressive seeing everybody. My question was for Ms. Donaldson in relation to what is the reality of seeing a potential cure in our future for Alzheimer's. I've known several amazing minds that I've seen go due to Alzheimer and dementia. And do you think that there's the potential for any crossover research with Mr. Mariner's research and what he's doing?
Thank you for your question. Yeah. Sorry for my dog in the background. Yeah, I think we're a little bit closer to finding a cure for Alzheimer's disease. I think we're definitely closer to finding more effective treatments. Currently, there aren't too many treatments on the market, especially ones that focus on norepinephrine. And so that's why I think this research is needed. As far as the crossover, yeah, I could definitely see something like that happening.
Great, thank you all so much. Tia, I had to come into the office so that my dogs wouldn't disturb us today. So I appreciate hearing your dog. Thank you so much. Now is the time that everybody's been waiting for. We're ready to announce our prize winners. And as I do that, I'm going to ask each winner, partly so it will spotlight you, to give a shout out to your advisor and to the program after I announce your name. So we're going to start with, we have a tie for second place. So we will not have a third place. We will have two $500 scholarships for our second place. So our second place winner is Mario Delangell.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you, the Department of Spanish and Portuguese, and my mentor, Damian Vergara Wilson, for his great, guidance through all this. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mario. And as they say, the check is in the mail. Okay. And also tied for second place today is Tia Donaldson.
Wow. Thank you to everyone. I'd like to thank my advisors, Ben Clark and Sam McKenzie. Thanks to everyone in the psychology department, my family and friends that are watching. Yeah, this is a great honor. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. And now the moment that you have been waiting for, our 2020 LoboBite first place winner goes to Amelia Bearley. Congratulations, Amelia.
I hear my mom yelling in the background, so it's emotional. But thank you judges, and also thank you other contestants. It was so awesome to hear you all speak, and I feel really proud to be a part of the University of New Mexico, to be have this experience. And then a special shout out to the master's program that I'm in, which is Master of Public Policy. They are a great bunch and really inspire the work that we're doing in the lab. And then also a special shout out to my lab mentor, who I do this work with in the College of Pharmacy, Dr. Pavan Mutil. And then a shout out to Paul Souder, who has always helped me with these presentations. And then, of course, my family and friends who are watching. So anyways, thank you very much. And it's a great moment.
Great, congratulations. Could we get everyone to join me in a round of applause for all of our contestants, all of our winners, and for our very impressive judges that agreed to take this time out of their busy schedules to help judge this important competition. I can't thank everyone enough. Really great event. Our winner, Amelia, will also get to participate in a regional competition at the Western Association of Graduate Schools in March. Amelia, I'm sorry to say it was supposed to be in Boise, but you will be in good company with other finalists that are done on video. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for attending the University of New Mexico LoboBITES competition. We hope to see you next year in person. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.